Good evening. You're on this. Excuse me. We're having technical difficulties here tonight. Good evening and welcome to the smoking section with Stephen Helfer. And I'm Emily Wieja, the co-host tonight. And we have a very special guest in the studio tonight, Bill Cunningham.
Yeah, not that special.
Welcome,
really.
Bill. I know you've been a guest on the show a couple of times previously. It's the first time I've actually met you in person. I feel like I know you already, though, from your previous appearances.
Well, actually, you know, I put on a front when I'm on this show. It's not really not like that.
Well, I'm glad that you put on this pleasant front for us. That's
for instance, I noticed that what seemed to be a harmonica was probably Steve's breathing because he smokes too much.
Yes, right.
I believe that's called accordion lung.
Is there something? Is there something? A disorder called accordion lung?
I do not know, but I'm sure that our viewers are furiously Googling as we speak.
Accordion lung? Yes. No, I never heard of that.
They want to hear what we have to say.
Now, Bill, you're with the Alliance of Cambridge Tenants. Is that correct?
Somewhat. I'm not on the board.
You're not
I'm
on the
not
board,
an
okay.
officer.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, what is your actual position with the Alliance of Cambridge Tenants?
I'm kind of a flunky right now.
Okay.
The Alliance of Cambridge Tenants was set up in the standard way that the programs that were set up under the poverty program in the 60s were, which is basically everybody who's in public housing in Cambridge. Mm-hmm. Everybody who has a Cambridge Housing Authority voucher is a member.
I see.
Right.
They're automatically
Of the Alliance of Cambridge Tenants.
But most people don't know that they're members.
Right.
Which is, you know, a lot of things are like that today.
Sure.
But so I was on the board for a couple of terms, and I still come in the office and so on, and I sort of know what's going on. Mm-hmm. But this is let's see, this is the fourth board that's sitting now.
Okay.
And
In the
officers
history of the
are all
Alliance
new.
of Cambridge Tenants?
Yes, in the long history.
So one thing I know is that you were very involved. Actually, today I was Googling your name. You'll be glad to hear.
Couldn't find anything.
No, and I did come up with quite a few references. I see that you've written quite a bit for various blogs. But also I came up with your name I believe it was on the Cambridge Day, I'm not sure.
Oh, right, yes.
When the Cambridge public housing smoking bans were being debated in
Being ran through, yes.
Being ran through in the Cambridge City Council. I know that you are, and I already knew this from Stephen, that you are a very vocal opponent of the public housing smoking bans. Is that correct? Maybe I don't want to put words
Did you
into
say
your mouth.
gold mine?
A vocal opponent. Sorry.
Vocal.
Yes.
Well, of course, our position and act was not so much a position on smoking.
Right.
It was a position on the right of privacy and the right, the so-called right of private enjoyment, which is written into leases and which actually stems from the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that was written into leases.
That doesn't, leases, most leases incorporate it because it's part of tenant landlord law in recent years, the right of peaceful and quiet enjoyment.
Very interesting.
Which means, which has the other effect that complaints about neighbors can become violations of right of quiet enjoyment too. So it's somewhat ambiguous, but our position was that, first of all, the Housing Authority, I can go rehearse the kind of stuff that I thought was important about this debate. First, you should know that they really didn't intend to have any debate about it at all. We knew this was coming, and they didn't want it to be brought up. But as soon as it was mentioned at meetings, people would perk up,
Right.
and they really didn't want that. If they were honest about wanting to really go through the thing, rather complex scientific and political issue, they should have wanted to start it out soon,
Right.
but they didn't.
Well, I read in this article that there was supposedly a petition that they had circulated among housing residents, but it looked like it actually had many more signatures than even residents.
Not exactly a petition. It was a questionnaire, a survey.
A survey, okay.
They put out two surveys at the same time, actually. One was about cable television connections, or rather internet, right? And they did nothing about that one, even though more people responded to that than the smoking one.
Huh.
Smoking thing had about a 15% return.
Oh, it seems very low.
Actually, it's quite high
Is it
for
high?
things like that.
Okay.
But the thing is, the thing was written it had answers already in there.
Right.
It
Very-
said,
very leading
you know,
questions.
if you
Right.
has anybody that you know had any kind of cancer, you know, right,
Right.
that was caused by
Do you-
smoking, right?
Do you know anybody who's died from secondhand smoke?
Right.
There you go, stuff
Right.
like that. So,
And then the questions, I assume, I've seen surveys like this. I've seen similar surveys geared towards smokers, and then I think the questions can often be very leading in that they assume that you don't like smoking, or they assume that smoking is harmful.
well, most people are of two minds. They, everybody probably, even you guys, have had the experience of being in a place where there's too much smoke, right? So people have that experience. They think you're talking about that. So naturally, nobody wants to be bothered with too much
Right.
smoke. On the other hand, everyone's heard that, you know, camels cause cancer. And so they hear both things, and most people really don't have much of a settled opinion. That's how polls work.
Right.
You decide what the questions are. You go out and you ask people, do you think Trump is a liar? You know,
Right.
because that's the question you want to focus on. So
Which is in itself a leading question. It's a good example.
all
of
polls are leading
yeah, right,
questions.
right.
They all are, because
Right.
you have to select out of all the possible things that are people thinking about
Right.
what you want them to think about.
Right.
And it's hard to avoid that.
So
however,
you actually-
however, I'll say this, that we have members in a building that's owned by Homeowners Rehab, which is one of the private nonprofits. It's not really, you know, call it private, but there are a couple of large nonprofits that manage around 1,000 or more units of
Cambridge units.
in Cambridge.
Yeah, 1,000 units to use.
About 1,000 each. Just to start in Homeowners Rehab, have about 1,000 units each. That.
Well, I mean, I
they-
believe there are approximately 10,000 households in Cambridge which are public housing,
Oh,
Well,
or is it 10,000
what
persons?
was public housing? No, there aren't that many in the public housing program. There were 5,600, I forget now, around 5,000.
Okay,
And around 5,000 vouchers from the Housing Authority.
that's a lot, yes.
It's a lot, but these are each big ones too. So they did a survey in a building in Inman Square, which is a large building, which was a smoking survey, but it was fairly worded. And the tenants rejected the smoking ban, and
Wow.
so they wouldn't do it. So they don't have a smoking ban in the building.
and
It's about 12, 20?
What
Is it
year was
12?
this? What year was this? That this?
3 years ago, something like that.
Huh.
Not that long after, about a year after the Housing Authority thing went through. So the thing is, there are these two questions. There's the scientific question of what is the effect of first-hand, second-hand, third-hand smoking on
Right.
people's health. And the second one is, what do people want? What's the democratic thing?
Right.
And of course, as usual with bureaucracies, they present both of them at once.
Right.
They want to win on both fronts.
Oh, of course. It's something I've noticed. It's a tactic I've noticed very often with anti-smoking campaigners is that if you refute their points on the one side, the scientific side, then they just quickly switch to the side of saying, oh well, you know, people don't like smoking. It's annoying.
right.
It smells. You know.
But
And vice versa.
But you can't refute it because the issues are too complex for public discussion. That's something that happens not only, well, you could take the global warming, which I accept is a reality, no question. And most people accept that it's a reality. The question is what causes it. And the truth is that to actually discuss the theory and the facts of something like that is so complex that you get experts battling against each other, and people just stand back and watch.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with this.
It's very interesting because
Well,
I think
Bill, it's in a sense it's the same thing as that. But Bill, you know, I was very much gratified that you did enter into the scientific fray, because you said, well, if there is no known safe level of secondhand smoke, I remember you at a meeting say, does that mean 2 molecules of secondhand smoke from Steve's cigarette when he's crossing the Mass Avenue Bridge is going to affect someone walking through Harvard Square, because if there's no safe level, that means 2 miles.
Well, that was not so much about the safe level, but what do you mean by secondhand smoke?
Yeah.
Because when you say this to the audience, they assume it means the guy next to you is puffing away and
Blowing you in your face.
joking, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you have asthma, and a lot of people in public housing have asthma. So they think that that's what it means. But scientifically, it means a molecule, right, drifts in the window, and that's why the survey that was taken in Boston and the comparative survey that they were going to do in Cambridge of actual sites was worthless. And people came by our office in Jackson Gardens who were doing the survey, and they said, we know this is worthless because these things are supposed to detect such small amounts that if somebody opens the window, the street, whatever's in the street's going to come in, and there's not going to be any way of telling. So it's all, the thing I want to emphasize with you is that the main effect of adding these regulations is not so much to actually stop people from smoking, but to be one more thing that you can bring up against people if you want. They had actually,
I think
from our discussion with them, they fell back to the point where it takes like 3 or 4 warnings, and it's a whole long process before they can actually do anything.
Right.
And this thing that's happened is the buildings that they're doing over now.
Yeah.
They're changing the air system in those buildings.
Like Manning.
Manning, they're not done with Manning yet, but they've done with LBJ.
Yeah.
And
LBJ,
as soon as it was finished, people were saying, well, we can smell somebody cooking fish down the hall on another floor. And I've moved back into my rehab place, and I smell people's cooking now. I never did before.
that's so interesting. It's like what people say about airplanes. Smoking was banned in airplanes very early on. I think in the 70s or the 60s.
Probably, let me think, when was it banned?
They used to have a section, didn't they?
Right. Well, whenever it was, I think it was the 70s, but people have said, since then, airlines spend much less on air filtration. They actually exchange the air inside the cabin much less frequently because there's no more smoking. So actually you're breathing air that's much dirtier.
Much staler.
Much staler.
Well,
It's
not
kind
only
of a
that, but
similar
Bill,
thing.
like smoking, tobacco smoke is very quickly detectable. Anybody can smell tobacco smoke, and that's something like
It's
carbon
pungent.
monoxide.
Yeah.
Or something like
Right.
that. Everybody in the plane can say, "Oh, thank God they got rid of the smoking because now the air is
Now we
clean."
can breathe
That's
smoke.
so
But in
true.
fact,
Yeah,
the
that's so true.
smoking,
Yeah.
the smoke in the air acted like the
Canary in the mind.
no, not the canary in the mine. I don't think. Well, maybe to some degree, like the canary in the mine.
Like the cat. Like
No.
Cat that came back.
No, it was like what they put in the aroma they put in gas in your.
Oh, I see. Almost to make
There's-
it safer.
Well, right, because if you left your gas on, they put
I
a
know.
flavoring in.
Yeah.
So otherwise, the gas would be totally undetectable. So smoke in the air, if the air is smoking, that immediately tells you the ventilation is not sufficient.
Right, that's true.
But now they've
the
removed that.
ventilation.
It's a very good point. Yeah, it's
I
a
didn't
very
know
good
where
point.
this was leading, but that's a
Yeah.
good point.
But it's very interesting, though, that you say that you've noticed that newly built units of public housing actually
Rehab.
have
There haven't been any newly built units of public
I
housing
see.
for about 30 or 35 years.
Okay, so rehabilitated structures.
yeah.
They're putting in poorer quality air.
No,
air
they think
filtration.
it's better. It's LEED platinum quality stuff.
Right.
It's like, and you find these in all the new buildings. You go into some of these new high rises, which I have
I've
because.
seen that. I've seen that LEED certification.
Well, but this sealed ventilation system causes staleness in the air and
Interesting,
real
wow.
problems.
Well, wait a
right?
minute, why is it sealed? I mean, tell us why is it that people
Because
can
it's
smell?
more efficient not to exchange air with the outside directly.
Wow.
But to have everything circulating around and around inside the building.
But LEED is supposed to be environmentally.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this doesn't sound like it's being.
Stuff doesn't go out either. It doesn't come in and doesn't go out. It gets
Really?
filtered inside.
So the purpose of this is to be more environmentally friendly.
The purpose of this is to raise the rent.
You think so? Yeah.
Charge more for rent.
I see. This is very interesting.
And for somebody's otherwise unemployable cousin has a company that does this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure,
It's stuff that will probably down the line people will say this was a mistake.
Well, LEED buildings are, LEED is
I've heard the
some
term. I've heard the term.
authoritative body.
Yeah, that gives different awards. For
And some of the things are probably reasonable.
They're good, yeah.
Some of them, I would guess.
Yeah, sure.
And I would imagine in these newly rehabilitated buildings with this lead air filtration, that's much easier for people to smell if people are smoking in their apartments.
Of course.
Is that right? Is that the way it's working?
And so some complaints are being CC'd to us.
Wow.
From buildings where people think that people next door are smoking, and they're mad because management isn't doing anything about it. Well, of course they're not.
Why?
This
Why
is
not?
not meant to be enforced. It's too hard
The
to
smoking
enforce
ban?
it. It's too hard to enforce it. It's one more thing for managers to do who already have too much to do. They already hear complaints. Without the smoking
Well,
ban,
yes, but Bill-
you could still get a complaint from a neighbor that somebody's smoking too much
Right.
next door,
No.
and they'd still have to do
Right.
something about it. But now there's just more stuff for them to think about, and it takes a long time. You have to.
For example, I see a lot of people from Manning going out into that small park.
Yeah, they do it. Yeah,
So they are
you
complying.
can't go there anymore.
So what do you?
Since when? Since
Well, the
when they
park
can't-
isn't there. They have
No,
to
the
go
park
out
is
back.
still there.
They have to go out
The
back.
park is there.
They go out the back door now.
Okay, they mean the patio isn't there.
Bill, do you have a sense of what compliance has been like? What's the percentage of compliance with the bans? Do you know?
Nobody knows.
You don't know.
Well, we do know that as they were about to go into the effect thing in Cambridge, they did you probably heard about this. They did Channel 5 did a special on Boston and its lack of compliance. They went around, they
That's
saw
right, I
people,
did see
everybody
that.
smoking
Yeah,
away,
yeah.
and they interview the executive director, and he goes, well, what's the problem? Well, you look at those pictures, everybody's smoking. So what? We're enforcing it. Like he just says that.
Well, thank God, he is not enforcing.
Yeah.
That I thank God. Maybe it has something to do with maybe they have a
You don't
little,
have to thank God.
maybe a little mercy or compassion. But there are some housing projects in this country where it is enforced.
Yes, but
Our-
those are mostly not actually public housing, but voucher buildings.
Well, no, I'm not talking about voucher buildings, but
And-
there are plenty of people in this country who are living in public housing, who are in wheelchairs and have walkers,
Yes.
and who are 80 or 90 years old, who will not smoke in their apartment because they're
Oh,
afraid.
they're afraid. That's
Yes.
it. They're afraid it will be enforced.
That's true. I mean, even if you're not complying, even if you're smoking in your apartment, I imagine you have this feeling of paranoia now.
And there was a
And
90-year-old
because your neighbor, it creates problems. And this is what we were saying when they were bringing it in. It's not going to be enforceable, but it's going to create more tension. Now, we at ACT never had a single call, and I at the tenant council over here at Washington Mills Newtown Court, which is the largest family housing concentration in the city in public housing, never had a single complaint about smoking
Never a
until the things started coming in.
Never a single complaint about smoking.
Never,
Okay,
because
wow.
we had complaints.
That's amazing.
The two main complaints that always come, is management intruding, coming in when they're not supposed to, or not giving notice, and
Oh,
second,
right.
neighbors, problems with neighbors.
Right.
So it's not like nobody complains to us about their neighbors.
Right.
But as soon as this thing started coming in, we started getting them.
Wow.
Because people became aware
Right.
that this thing is there,
Right,
and
it's
they
so true.
and they complain about their
And it gave them
neighbors.
something to do. I mean,
It's so
because
true.
I think
Yeah.
most people kind of have many people have a tendency to be somewhat busybodies. You can't think of anything to do, you
Many
can
people?
report somebody.
True.
Yes.
Well, that's because we're on CCTV that you think that. That's
Well, now, what do you think of the HUD? I mean, HUD is now.
What is the status of that currently? I've lost track.
Obviously, you know that HUD
you were the one that informed
took.
me of that.
I think
Oh.
they had a 60-day period of time where they took public
Comment
comments.
period, yeah.
Yeah,
Which
that's
we all know is-
required by
Yeah.
Federal law, presumably.
it's administrative procedure law.
Right.
60-day
And-
comment.
Well, I mean, and then HUD. I don't know when it's supposed to go into effect, and now.
I know it was on the list of regulation that President Trump was looking at possibly retracting.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't
that's
know.
everything.
I don't know what the status is of it.
There's a lot of
currently.
things,
It's
yes.
everything.
Right.
The thing is, I wrote. You suggested I wrote to them, when he wasn't in office yet, and of course I didn't hear anything back. No, to Trump. You sent out a letter
Oh, did I?
suggesting right to Trump.
Oh, great.
Oh, I think it was when it was during his transition period. He had
Yes.
almost a suggestion box
Still in a transition
online.
period,
Yeah.
The thing is, there's
Well,
all
you wrote
all
to-
these bureaucracies have to carry out whatever directives come down. And I can tell you, having been around the left and studied these things, that even Joseph Stalin couldn't get his bureaucracy to behave. The only way he tried to make them behave is somebody would show up and snatch some bureaucrats and they'd disappear.
What about Kim Jong-un?
But what about him?
He can't get his
I have no idea what's going on with him.
It's a state secret.
He had a fat brother-in-law once, didn't he?
I always get them
died
mixed
recently. You know, well,
Got squirted in the face with secondhand smoke.
up. He smokes. I think he smokes, doesn't he?
Kim Jong-un?
Yeah.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
See, the thing is,
Anyway.
I don't believe anything that I
Getting a
hear
little off
over and
track
over again.
here.
Yeah, we're off track. But it's not quite off track because the Trump administration, of course, has a new HUD director
Right.
who has no background in
Ben
housing.
Carson.
He has no
Is
background.
that good
in
or
housing.
bad?
Well, it's bad because no one's at the wheel. There's nobody there who knows what to do with these bureaucrats. So I don't know. I mean, it depends on how far along the smoking regulation has gone, whether they're going to go on autopilot and do something, or whether they're going to wait for directions. If they're going to wait for directions, then thank God again, because there ain't going to be any. Basically, there are people in the right wing in Congress who like to just do away with the department.
HUD.
Yeah, right. They've talked about it for a long time. It's not going to happen because too many jobs involved. But they're going to talk about it, and it's going to scare them. So what does scaring a bunch of bureaucrats do? Does it make them less proactive or more proactive? Probably less. They're probably going to do less stuff because they're afraid that any move they make is going to be the wrong move. It's a very strange situation we're in.
It's a matter of waiting and seeing, I think. But yeah.
Well, we have to wait and see. We don't have any power.
True. But I mean, there have been hopeful signs. There was a New Hampshire was it a congressman who actually
Let's a state
congressman.
What are they? I don't
state
know.
representative.
Yeah.
Who actually proposed, I'm not sure what's happened to this currently, but
Rolling back the smoking ban.
rolling back smoking bans in bars and restaurants in New Hampshire. So I keep hoping that like one of these things is going to pass and then
I come
create a
from New
ripple
Hampshire.
effect. So
Nothing happens in the legislature there. New Hampshire has the second largest legislature in the world.
is that right?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Every single town, even if there are only 4 people in it, has a senator,
Ah, interesting.
for example.
Wow.
Yes. I know people who've done it. Somebody I went to high school with was governor once there, in fact. I know it's,
You know, Bill, I was going to talk about this, Emily, if I get leave from Emily. But, you know, that fire on Berkshire Street, I think, 11 buildings, fortunately no casualties of any sort, no injuries, no casualties.
Yeah.
The state fire marshal said it was caused by careless disposal of smoking materials.
But it was in a building that was being rehabbed.
Right, but I believe they said it was careless disposal of smoking materials by workmen on the site.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That, I believe, is what they're saying.
That's what
So
they
then
said.
I made a public records request from the fire marshal's office. I want to see the report.
Yeah.
And they tell me they can't give it to me
Why?
because it's not complete, because the part that's done by the fire investigators is done, but then the state police has to do it. But yet they announce to all the news media that they've got the, what's your take? I mean, there's
When that fire took place, it
Right.
reminded us of the fire on Putnam Avenue on the Justice Start building.
Bill, we only have 45 seconds, please.
So there have been fires like that in buildings that are being rehabbed,
Right.
and that happens a lot. It's happened in Boston too, and whether it's smoking materials or not, it has to do with the situation around the rehab.
Right.
If somebody's smoking around explosive or
Well, right, yes, but my point is, there is even fire investigators will admit that there is a tendency when they can't figure out the cause of fire to say smoking materials.
Right.
Ah,
That I have this documented, by the way. I mean, from fire investigators.
send it to me.
Yeah, I will. I mean, not so. Anyway, Bill, we're out. We've got 7 seconds left. 5 seconds.
Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
Have a nice
joining
evening.
me.
Thank you.
All right, Bill.